I want you to do me a favor right now. Just as you're listening to this, just take a second and look around the room you're in.
Yeah, just really take it in.
Right. Like look at the walls, look at the device you're holding, or maybe look at a coffee cup on your desk or the chair you're currently sitting on. It all feels so, incredibly real, doesn't it?
It feels completely solid.
Exactly. It feels permanent.
Yeah.
You just take for granted that the colors you're seeing are, well, actually there. You assume the ground beneath you is this physical, hard foundation, and that time is just sort of ticking away, right?
Yeah.
Second by second, just marching into the future.
Which is what our brains are built to assume, honestly.
Yeah, but what if I told you that almost every single thing you are experiencing in this exact moment is a highly filtered, tightly constructed illusion?
It is a profoundly unsettling thought. I mean, really. But it is exactly where our deep dive is taking us today.
Oh, yeah.
Our mission today is to just basically completely deconstruct your concept of the physical world.
Which is no small task.
Right. The sources we're pulling from today revolve around this really fascinating collection of notes and scientific explorations centered on something called the reality paradox.
And it's so good.
It really is. It's this incredible intersection of neuroscience, quantum physics, and a series of thought experiments inspired by a conceptual time traveler.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when I first started reading through these sources, I just had this massive shift in perspective.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, we walk around assuming we are looking through a clear glass window at the universe, right? We think we are just these passive observers taking in the absolute truth of reality.
We think seeing is believing.
Exactly. But the source material suggests we are actually wearing like a tightly programmed VR headset. Everything you see, hear, and feel right now isn't the raw universe. It's a simulation generated by the wetware inside your skull.
Right. And before we can even begin to understand the universe itself, we really have to understand the biological lens we're viewing it through.
Which is super flawed.
Oh, incredibly flawed. The brutal truth is that our biological lens is heavily distorted. So, let's start with human sight. When you look around that room, you think you're seeing everything there is to see. But in reality, human eyes only detect a microscopic sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Right. I mean, right now, wherever you are sitting, the air around you is just completely saturated with information that you are entirely blind to.
Completely oblivious.
You've got radio waves, X-rays, microwaves, infrared, ultraviolet radiation. It is all there, sharing the exact same space as you. Your Wi-Fi router is literally pumping out invisible light right through your body as we speak, but to you, it's just empty air.
Because your biological VR headset simply isn't programmed to render those frequencies.
Yeah.
And there is a very specific evolutionary reason for that. Evolution does not prioritize showing us the objective truth of the universe.
No, not at all.
Evolution only cares about one thing, and that's fitness and survival. The human brain is this incredibly calorie-hungry organ. If it tried to process every single wavelength of light, every fluctuation in the magnetic field, or every frequency of sound, it would just overheat and crash.
So over millions of years, our brains just evolved to filter out the overwhelming, chaotic truth of reality.
Exactly. Leaving us with only the specific sensory inputs we needed to find food, find a mate, and avoid being eaten by predators.
So we evolved to see this heavily edited summary of the world because processing the full, unvarnished truth would have been computationally exhausting, right? And honestly, kind of useless for outrunning a tiger.
Useless and distracting. What's fascinating here is a specific analogy from the sources that perfectly captures this, the computer desktop.
Oh, I loved this part.
Right. Think about the screen of your computer or your smartphone. When you want to save a document, you drag a little picture of a folder onto a little picture of a trash can or into another folder.
Yeah, drag and drop.
But you know that the actual data inside your computer does not look like a yellow manila folder.
Obviously not.
The physical reality of that data is just microscopic electrical charges on a silicon chip.
Yeah, and if the computer forced you to interact with the raw binary code, the millions of ones and zeros, you literally wouldn't be able to get anything done. You'd be paralyzed.
That is exactly the genius of a user interface.
Yeah.
The folder icon hides the terrifying complexity of the hardware and presents you with a useful tool. And human perception functions the exact same way.
Wow.
Reality is the raw code. Human experience is just the app running on top of it.
Okay, I want to challenge this, though, because this is where my brain really started to rebel when I was reading our sources. Let's take an apple.
Okay, an apple.
The sources point out that an apple isn't inherently red. Redness does not exist as a physical property of the apple itself. The apple simply absorbs certain wavelengths of light and reflects others.
Right. Physics 101.
Yeah, and those reflected wavelengths hit our retinas, and then our brains basically manufacture the experience of red. It's just an icon on our biological desktop.
Exactly.
But if the redness of an apple and its sweet taste are entirely in my head, why does the apple still give me physical calories? I mean, my biological interface might be inventing the taste to encourage me to eat it, but the physical energy my body gets from it is objectively real, right?
You are hitting on the crucial difference between the underlying reality and our sensory translation of it.
Okay, so
The energy contained within the chemical bonds of that apple is absolutely real. The universe is full of raw energy and matter. But sweetness and redness are not properties of energy.
right.
They are properties of consciousness. The universe is just tossing raw, invisible, silent data at you in the form of chemical compounds and electromagnetic radiation.
And my body just uses what it needs.
Exactly. Your body metabolizes the real chemical energy to survive, but your brain paints the colors and synthesizes the flavors to ensure you seek out that energy in the first place. Every single quality you consciously associate with the apple is a construct.
That is just wild to me.
Reality and experience are not identical.
It's just wild. We are literally locked in a dark, silent vault inside our skulls, hallucinating a vibrant world based on just a trickle of electrical signals.
Pretty much.
But okay, if our biological perception is just this useful app, what is the physical server running it? Like if we take off the biological VR headset and look through the lens of modern physics at the actual hardware of the world, what is actually out there?
Well, when you look past the biological interface and examine the physical hardware of reality, the illusion shatters even further.
Of course it does.
Let's look at matter. We have this deep-seated intuition about solidity. You feel the chair you're sitting on. You can knock your hand against a wooden table.
Yeah, it feels solid.
But when we zoom into the atomic level, that solidity completely vanishes.
This is the part that completely blows my mind. The sources highlight that atoms are almost entirely empty space.
Yep. 99.99%.
And the analogy they use is staggering. If you were to enlarge a single atom to the size of a massive sports stadium, the nucleus, the actual chunk of mass containing the protons and neutrons, would be smaller than a marble sitting directly on the 50-yard line.
Just a tiny marble.
Yeah. And everything else, the entire rest of the stadium, all the way up to the highest bleachers where the electrons are orbiting, is just empty space.
It is mostly a void, which naturally forces us to ask, if the atoms that make up a brick or a piece of wood or human bone are practically entirely empty space, why don't objects just pass right through each other?
Right. Why does a wall feel like a wall?
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the answer is that solidity itself is an illusion caused by electromagnetic fields.
That's all just forces.
Yeah. So when you are sitting on a chair right now, you aren't actually touching it. You are basically just hovering on a cushion of repelling electromagnetic fields.
The physics actually support that wild conclusion. The outer shell of every atom is made of electrons, which carry a negative charge.
Okay.
So the electrons in the atoms of your body and the electrons in the atoms of the chair are both negatively charged. Think about what happens when you try to push the negative ends of two powerful magnets together.
Oh, they push back. You can't force them together.
They repel each other with incredible force. As your body gets infinitely close to the chair, those electron fields push back. What your brain interprets as touching a solid object is actually just the sensation of your nerve endings reacting to that invisible electromagnetic repulsion.
That is insane.
You have never actually touched anything in your entire life. You're literally just a localized collection of energy fields floating through a universe of other energy fields.
That completely breaks my understanding of the world. Because common sense tells me that if I punch a brick wall, my solid knuckles are hitting a solid wall. But physics says my empty space knuckles are just violently decelerating due to an invisible electromagnetic force field generated by the empty space wall.
Our common sense and intuition completely fail us at the microscopic level, mainly because we evolved to deal with the macro world. Pretending things are solid keeps us from walking off cliffs.
Fair point.
But when you examine the literal hardware of the universe, the stuff of reality just disappears into math and forces. And what's even more bizarre is that the empty space inside that atom, the stadium, so to speak, isn't even truly empty.
Right, the sources explicitly mention that the universe is reluctant to contain nothing. But how can space be anything other than empty?
Even in a perfect vacuum, where you have removed every single atom and blocked out all light, space itself is boiling with energy fluctuations.
Boiling with energy.
Yeah, physics calls this the quantum foam. Because of the sheer amount of foundational energy baked into the fabric of space, virtual particles are constantly popping into existence out of nowhere, existing for a fraction of a microsecond, and then annihilating each other back into nothingness.
So it's like a static TV screen of just particles popping in and out.
Essentially, yes. There are overlapping quantum fields vibrating with potential everywhere. Empty space is actually a highly active, dynamic medium. True emptiness just does not exist. There is only activity and potential.
But if the fundamental building blocks of reality aren't solid, and empty space is actually boiling with spontaneous energy, it means the rules that govern all this can't be the standard rules of physics we're used to.
Not even close.
We can't use everyday logic to explain probability in empty space.
No, quantum mechanics is where reality stops merely being counterintuitive and starts becoming almost incomprehensible. At the quantum level, particles just refuse to be put into neat little boxes.
They act as both waves of probability and localized particles, right?
Exactly, and they seem to refuse to choose which one they are until they are forced to.
And observation plays a role here, right? Which, on its face, sounds like magic. I mean, the sources note that reality actually behaves differently when it is being measured or observed. But how does a subatomic particle know that I'm looking at it?
It sounds deeply mystical until you break down what observation actually means in physics. Unobserved, a quantum particle exists in a superposition, a sort of blur of probabilities.
Like it's everywhere at once.
Yes, it is everywhere. It could potentially be all at once, rippling like a wave.
Hmm.
But the moment you measure it, that wave function collapses and it snaps into a single defined reality as a particle.
But why? What is the trigger for that?
The trigger is physical interaction. Measuring a particle isn't just looking at it from afar. To see or measure a subatomic particle, you have to bounce something off it,
Like light.
right? Like a photon of light or an electron from a measuring device. That physical collision, the actual transfer of energy required just to get the data, is what breaks the delicate quantum state.
Oh, I see.
The environment interacts with the particle, forcing it out of its blurry wave state and snapping it into a definite, measurable position.
Which brings us right back to the VR headset analogy. In a video game, the computer doesn't render the entire world behind you, right? It only renders the high-definition pixels you are currently looking at or interacting with to save processing power.
Yeah, the rendering engine.
Quantum mechanics makes it sound like the universe is doing something shockingly similar, leaving things blurry until they bump into something else.
Physicists would definitely caution against taking the simulation metaphor too literally, but I mean, the mathematical parallels are impossible to ignore. It reveals a universe that is incredibly strange at its core. And honestly, nothing gets stranger than how this universe processes the concept of time.
Oh man, let's get into time, because this is where I really struggle to let go of my common sense.
Mine is tough.
I can accept that an apple isn't objectively red. I can just barely accept that my chair isn't solid. But I vividly remember yesterday, and I absolutely do not know what happens tomorrow. I am moving through time forward. How can physics possibly say that time doesn't definitively flow forward?
It is the most stubborn illusion of all. When physicists look at the fundamental equations that describe the universe, the laws of motion, gravity, electromagnetism, they find something shocking.
What's that?
Those laws do not distinguish between the past and the future. If you play the math forward, it works perfectly. If you reverse the math and play it backward, it still works perfectly.
Wow.
There is no fundamental arrow of time baked into the deepest laws of physics.
But that makes no sense. I mean, I age, things decay. You drop a coffee mug and it shatters into 100 pieces on the floor. It never goes in reverse.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that shattered mug is the key to everything.
How so?
The reason you perceive time moving in one direction is not because of a fundamental law of time, but because of a concept called entropy, the universe's tendency to move from order to disorder.
Okay.
Think about dropping a glass. It shatters. You will never, in a trillion years, see those shattered pieces spontaneously leap back together off the floor and form a perfect glass.
Right, because there's only one specific arrangement of atoms that makes a perfect glass. But there are billions of possible chaotic arrangements for a pile of shattered shards.
It is pure probability. It is mathematically infinitely more likely for things to become disordered than to become ordered.
So it's just math.
There are just more ways for things to be messy than to be neat. We ride that wave of increasing disorder, and our brains interpret that sequence of increasing entropy as the flow of time.
My brain is hurting a little.
Well, at a foundational level, many physicists suggest that the past, the present, and the future might all coexist simultaneously. It's often called the block universe theory.
The block universe.
Yeah, every moment that has ever happened and every moment that ever will happen just exists, suspended in this four-dimensional block of space-time.
Wait, so it's like a movie reel on a projector?
Let's hear it.
Like, all the frames of the movie exist simultaneously on the film strip. The beginning of the movie, the middle, the end, they are all physically there in the room at the exact same time. But the projector light only illuminates one single frame at a time. So my consciousness is just the projector light moving frame by frame through a movie that is already fully shot.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. In the block universe framework, the universe doesn't happen. It just is. Your birth, you listening to this conversation right now, and your eventual death are all embedded in that space-time block permanently.
That is wild.
You only feel the passage of time because your consciousness is constrained to process information linearly, following the gradient of increasing entropy. The universe rarely asks our permission before being strange.
So what does this all mean? We've stripped away color and sound as biological illusions meant to keep us alive. We've dissolved solid matter into empty space and repulsive electromagnetic fields.
We've done a lot of deconstructing.
And we've even taken the comforting tick-tock of time and turned it into an illusion of probability in a static movie reel of existence. I mean, it leaves you feeling entirely unmoored from reality.
It certainly strips away the comforting assumptions. But, it also leads us to the blank slate theory discussed in the source material.
Right.
It reminds us that no human child is born with an inherent concept of reality. An infant doesn't know about time, space, or solidity. Think about how long it takes a baby to learn object permanence, the idea that a toy still exists when you put it under a blanket.
It takes months.
Exactly. All of these concepts, solidity, flow, permanence, are learned, heavily filtered, and constructed over time by the developing brain and by the society we grew up in. We mistake our familiarity with the world for actual understanding of the world.
The sources use this brilliant analogy that really grounded this for me. We navigate the universe exactly like someone using a smartphone.
The smartphone analogy is great.
You can swipe, you can open apps, you can send a text, and it all feels so familiar and natural. But if I asked you to explain how the microchips govern the flow of electrons to render those pixels, or how the antenna decodes radio waves into a video call, you'd likely have no idea.
Most people wouldn't.
We are all power users of reality, but almost none of us actually know how the operating system works.
We live our entire lives inside a profound mystery, sandwiched right between birth and death, operating a machine we just don't comprehend.
Yeah.
And once you strip away all those convenient illusions, once you look past the biological interface, the solid seeming matter and the flow of time, you run headfirst into the ultimate question. The question that lies completely beyond the reach of both science and philosophy.
Why is there something instead of nothing?
Exactly. If the universe is just this bizarre soup of quantum fields and mathematical probability existing in a timeless block, why does it exist at all?
The ultimate mystery.
There is no scientific formula, no quantum equation that can tell you why existence itself was necessary. Physics can explain how the gears turn, but it cannot tell you who built the machine or why the machine was turned on in the first place.
It's funny. At first, going through this material made me feel incredibly small. It made everything feel a bit fake.
It can definitely have that effect.
But the more I sit with it, the more liberating it feels. You don't have to fully comprehend the mechanics of the universe to appreciate the profound privilege of getting to experience it.
Absolutely.
You get to be a localized patch of the universe experiencing itself, even if it's through a filtered, simplified VR headset. You get to taste the apple, even if the sweetness is just a construct. It makes the illusion itself feel like a gift.
Our biological filters shield us from an overwhelming, chaotic reality so that we can find meaning in the simplicity. The illusion is what allows us to love, to build, and to understand.
But it also leaves me with this one haunting thought that I want to leave you with today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've established that our brains intentionally evolved to filter out the terrifyingly complex, bizarre truth of reality just to keep us sane and alive. But what would happen if we forced the issue?
Oh, wow. Like bypassing the filters.
Yeah, what if, in the future, technology allowed us to bypass our biological filters entirely? If we could plug our consciousness directly into the raw, unfiltered quantum universe, Would human consciousness expand to finally understand the cosmos in all its infinite complexity? Or would our minds simply crash like a computer trying to process raw, unformatted data?
Are we biologically capable of handling the truth of reality, or is the illusion the only place we can survive?
I invite you to sit with that mystery today. The next time you pick up a cup of coffee or look out a window, remember that you are hovering on invisible fields, blind to the roaring energy around you, riding a wave of probability through a block of time. Look at your world a little differently today.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.